Thank you, everybody, for your patience. Sorry, I lost track of time a little bit, and so we started a couple minutes late, but we will make sure we cover everything today on our webinar, which is certified rates. So obviously this can be a very complex topic, but I'm going to try to give you an overview of this and how it will work in a system and everything, so you can kind of get a good idea of how this works, and then running reports and so forth, so you can see how this is all going to generate in the system. There's not a huge self-service portion of this, so I can kind of skip over that of it, but I will switch over to my system here and you'll be able to see this. So give me one moment. So you should be able to see my screen here. Like I said, I'm just going to breeze right through self-service here. Now, of course, part of certified payroll is going to be the time and so forth that an employee is going to be entering, but that's a different topic for another day. Timesheets is where the information is going to come from to pay in payroll. But let's go look at the actual configuration of this. And that's going to be happening over in the admin side of the software here. So I have a different tab open, but just in case you're curious how you get there, you probably know already, go to payroll. And that's going to take me over to my payroll. And of course, my employees are going to be in my system here. But I'm going to go into settings, and that's where our configuration is going to land with certified payroll. So the first thing I need to do, of course, is to set up my certified rates in my system. So hopefully you have your rates from whoever's providing those rates for you, and they would land right here under certified rates. Now I have one set up in my system here. I just called it local 128. Of course, you can call it anything you like for the name here. That's the one required field as far as the description. Now you might want to put in things here for the union and the local and the project number, etc. Those are not required here on this screen, so you don't have to fill those in if you don't want to do that. Moving over to the right side of the screen here, you're going to see we have an option here for what we call employee-driven rates. So what I've set up here is one that's based off of the position that employees are in, but you can have ones that are tied directly to employee records. So you may have multiple people with the same job title, but they have different rates. And that's what an employee-driven rate would allow you to do, rather than having to set up a single job title for every employee and set that up in here, which is one way to do it. You instead could check the box here for employee-driven rate. And rather than selecting the position, you'd select the employee that you're going to put the rate on. You can't have a combination of them within the same certified rate table. So if you do employee-driven rate, it's going to be employees. If you do the other way, it's going to be positions. You can't mix them. All right, you want to indicate if you're a contractor or subcontractor in this situation, so you can check this box off here. And then are you doing a prevailing wage calculation here where you're going to take in their rates and deductions and so forth to calculate a rate and compare that to their position rate and figure out which is the winning rate. So you can do that with this right here. The first payroll where this will apply, you can see in mine, it goes back to January. Of course, this might be in the future. So this is the first pay period that it will apply to. When you select this, you'll have to select the pay period and the period that it applies to. So you might have multiple pay periods or payroll schedules like I have in here. And of course, once you select that, you'll select the pay period. Right, and then if this is going away, perhaps it's ending at the end of the year or something like that, you might want to put a final payroll in here and an expiration date on it. So you can certainly do that here. This is again going to read that payroll schedule, and I can select the pay period. And then once I am no longer using these rates, it's not that I'm going to new rates, maybe that are effective new fiscal year or some contract year or something like that. If these are no longer going to be applicable at all, you could put a rate expiration date, in which case they will not be used after that date. All right, then down here at the bottom, you'll see something. This is actually relatively new, which is where we can have an effective date that is not the same as this up here. So you might say that this goes back several years. In mine, it goes at the beginning of this year, but it might go back several years. And now you have new rates that came into play. There's a new contract that came in or something like that, and the new rates have come in. So we have an effective date right here. Now, I only have one, but you can have multiple and go back and look at older rates. So if you know that your rate's going to be changing in July, you might want to put new rates in here and say it's July 1st or something like that. And do I want to copy the existing rates to the new ones? Oh, you may want to do that. So you might say yes here. That's going to copy those. So now you'll see I've got two different rates in here. These will be used up until July 1st, and then July 1st, the new ones will come into play. Well, let's look at this one this year. And of course, I can delete rates that I haven't used already. So as an example, I can do that. So here you can see I've got some rates here now. This is something I can import. So if I'd like to import this, I can download a template. And this is an Excel that you can use to fill in your rates if you want to do it that way. Perhaps you already have your rates in a Excel format. So this will generate one where you can maybe copy and paste and make it a little easier to enter these in. Not that you can't enter them in the system here manually, but might be useful to do in a spreadsheet. So let me show you that spreadsheet here. So here's an example of the spreadsheet here. Now, if you're doing an employee-driven rate, you would use the employee number here. So remember that employee-driven rate versus position rate, you have to do one or the other. You can't like say, well, for employee number 123, here's their rate, and then for the position code of welder, here's their rate. You have to do one or the other in here, but you populate the column there. So as an example, I would choose the position, let's just say janitor, right? The type, so we have three choices here: base, income, or deduction. If I choose income, I need to tell it the income code. So for base, I don't need to do that, but for income, I would need to tell it the income code. For deduction, I would need to tell the deduction code. So these are required. If you select income or deduction here, you have to select either the income code or the deduction code if you select those. If you don't, then you don't need to populate those. Then here is the rate. So let's say it's the base rate, and I want to put in the hourly rate here. In here, I might say that it's $25 an hour. All right, so it's a good example right there. Now, if you're doing something where there's a deduction and perhaps there's an employer or an employee amount, then you would fill in these right here. All right, maybe there's a multiplier. So you could put all those things in here. Now, these are not all required. Normally in our templates, we color things with this yellowish color to show that they are required. These are required based off of what you're doing over here in this type column. So if I don't choose deduction, I don't have to do employee and employer amount or multiplier or deduction code. If I choose income, then of course I need to choose the income code, et cetera. So it depends on what you're selecting there. And the system will let you know when you import if you're missing something. Let's say I chose deduction, but I didn't use the deduction code. Building the other stuff is going to tell me there's an error, and it will highlight it in a discrepancy that you can find out what's wrong. And of course, here's the effective date. So you would put down, like in my situation there, July 1st of 2023. All right, so you can use this to import in as many rows as you like into the system here. Of course, you can also manually do that. So once you've filled this in, you would go back into the system. And let me do that right here. And you'll see here, so if I'd imported it, it would look something like this. Now, also, if I entered in manually, it'll look like this too. So I've put some in. So here's an example of base. So the position code, I had to choose the position because I'm not doing employee-driven rate. There's the position code. Here's what type, and then the rate. So mine, the janitor base rate is $22.50. Now, if I was going to do one with incomes and deductions, let me just show you what that would look like. Let's just say assistant coach, income. Here's the income I'm going to use, and let's just say it's double time. And here's the rate, and here's a multiplier possibly that I need to put in there. So you, again, put the rate in there. Let's say double time was $35 an hour. All right, so there we go. So that's an income. If I'm doing deduction, you'll see it changes a little bit with deduction. Here I've got which deduction code I'm using. So I don't have any, I'll show you there. So you have to indicate that a deduction is a certified deduction, but you would choose the deduction code and then put in the employee amount or employer amount. So you can see that right there. All right, so once you have them entered in here or imported in, of course, you want to save your changes. You know, if you're doing a brand new one, you would just hit save. If you make some changes, you're saving your changes in here. So you would hit save right here. Now you can come in here and edit this stuff if you need to, if you made a mistake and, you know, put the decimal in the wrong place or something, you can edit it. You're not stuck with what is in here. Now, as I mentioned with deductions, you do need to indicate that a deduction is a certified deduction in here. and I didn't have one set up. So let me show you where that would be. Let's just pick one here. It doesn't really matter, but you'll see over here under calculation, I've got certified rate percentage, or certified rate amount. So this is how it would show up in that drop-down menu and in the Excel, that it is a certified deduction. I need to choose one of those. All right, I don't have any configured that way. That's why I didn't see that. All right, so that is a very high level of how you would set up the certified rates. And of course, as always, if you have questions, we have this right here, which will give you detail on what all of this stuff means, and you can see what we're talking about here. All right, if you're curious on our prevailing wage calculation works, or, which is base rate is greater than certified rate plus this, then the winning rate is the base rate, otherwise it's certified rate. So we talk about how that works, telling you what is the date of the first payroll, all those fields, and how this all would work. If you have any questions. All right. So once you have this configured, now you can tie this certified rate to a couple of things. First off, you can go to, I'm hoping I'm in the right place. I didn't look before. I believe it's on the project, and yeah, see the project right there where I have a certified rate. So when you're setting up a certified rate, I've got this one Procore project here with project code 001, and I could select the certified rate that applies to that. All right, so that can be done right here. You can also do this on the employee. So I've done this on my employees. I've set up the certified rate code on the employees. So let me pick somebody who it has it applied to them. Go to this food vendor as an example. And I will go down to the employment screen and their primary position. And there's going to be a field on here called certified rate, where I put in the rate table that applies to them. Now, of course, if you have multiple rate tables, you would choose the one that applied to them. I just have the one. So you can edit this, or when you hire them, you might want to put that in as their rate to start. All right, so different setup on the project and the employees. So now how does this work? So actually, let me go back to my timesheets here. I believe I have some that are ready to bring into payroll. And let me just see here. These are all submitted. Let me go ahead and approve these. This will allow me to bring these into payroll. So let me do that real quick. I thought I had approved them. So I need to have approved timesheets to bring them into payroll. The reason I'm doing this is this will bring in the hours. I don't have to manually put in the hours for my employees. So let me just do that real quick. They're all approved. All right. So my pay period 6/4 to 6/10. I'm going to run a payroll for that. All right. So I'm going to add a batch for my weekly payroll. And I need to go off cycle since it's a little bit older, but there's 6/4 to 6/10. And I'll go ahead and put 6/16 as the name of that. Of course, your naming convention may be different. I'm just using as the pay date as the naming convention there for mine. And this should load all my employees, including those people with timesheets. And I might have some people who don't have a timesheet, and that's fine. So you may remember in my certified rate table, I only had 4 rates. So I've got some people in here who do not have a certified rate, and I have other people who do. I've got like managers and players who don't, and then I've got ticket sellers and customer service and so forth that do. So I'm going to go ahead and load in the timesheets here. So this is going to go find, of course, all the approved timesheets. This will take a couple of moments to do that. And then it's going to load in the hours and everything from those timesheets. Now, mine were very generic. They just had 40 hours. Of course, yours might be completely different. You may have overtime in there and things like that, but mine is extremely generic. Okay, so I picked on Emily Boyer here because I can see her rate as a food vendor is $15 an hour, but my certified rate I know is higher than $15 an hour. So hopefully I'll find her here in a second. Let me go ahead and calculate, and I'll see that her rate is not 15, that is going to be some other number. So let's go ahead and find Emily here. Maybe page 2. Oh, she didn't have any hours. Of course, I picked somebody without hours. Let me find somebody who does have some hours there. Let's look at Alberto Vega, showing $21.50 an hour, or the janitor, Alexandra Payne. Her rate I know is not 15. Let me just bring that person up here. So she is pay rate is $15, but she's part of this certified rate of that. So when I come into here, cross my fingers that, yep, her rate is $22.50, even though she's normally $15 an hour. The prevailing wage rate was $22.50 in this situation. So her rate is now showing as $22.50. And of course, all the other stuff with payroll, I'm not going to go into all the detail, but their taxes and deductions. Now, if I did have certified incomes and deductions, and she had those incomes as payroll, let's say I did double time and the rate was $40 an hour, or let's make it $50 an hour, it would show that in here if she had it. If I had deductions, let's say there was a union dues or a medical benefit or something like that, those would show over here in her deductions. So those would show up on here based off of the settings that I had in my system there. I did not have any set up, but that exactly was what it would do. It would put the rate there of, let's say 50, and then whatever the cost was for her dues or her benefits, or et cetera. All right, so that's running the payroll real quick. I'll just go ahead and, I'm not going to go through the maintenance of this and everything, but I'm going to go ahead and just approve this payroll. Okay, I'm not worried about, shoot. I have a vacation bank that I've accrued in the future, so it's not going to let me do it. I've done a payroll, so I'll be able to finish this payroll because I want to show the report. So if you've done payroll in the past, you need to print your checks and do your direct deposit, which I've already done. Everything is marked as paid here. So I'm going to complete the batch, and this should allow me to run my report now. So the payroll is done. And of course, you do whatever GL stuff is related to that. But I really wanted to look at the certified payroll report. So go ahead and run this report here. Now, this is the United States Department of Labor report. So here's that payroll that I did. Now, I know the one I was just trying to do was a different date. Don't worry about it. This is the one I just finished. All right, here you can see I can put my name on it and so forth. I can do this if I want to run it for like a certain position or something. I could break that out, but I'm just going to leave this stuff. Well, here, let me put my name here, and let's just say in payroll. Okay, and I'll go ahead and apply. Now this is going to run as a PDF, of course, because it's going to generate the Department of Labor report. Now, the other thing I'm going to show here in a moment after this runs is also how you can do the certified reporting that exports out. And we do work right now with a couple of different providers for this. So you can get that out if you're using one of these providers. But let's look at this report here. All right, so here you can see is the certified payroll report. So it's got obviously the company information up here. Now, if this information is wrong as far as this is concerned, that's where you can go and fix it in the system. Now, you don't want to go and edit this report every time and like change the name and the address and stuff like that. You'd want to make sure that it was right, in your system and the data was correct. So you don't have to always do that. But you'll see like these fields, it's populating from what is in my system. I can go and show you my payroll setup. This is payroll number 25 for the year, but that's how you can make sure that stuff is correct. Here you can see, let me just zoom in a little bit. It's showing you the different people that are in that certified payroll. So ticket sellers and the hours per day for each day of the week that's there. And of course, the actual days of the week for that payroll, the total hours there, the rate of pay, I said as $30 per hour here. So, that's where it's getting that out there. And then the taxes and other withholdings over there, other deductions, et cetera, you can see are coming out. So it's giving me my net wages for the week here. So it's generating this report for me. Of course, I have 23 pages of this report because I have a lot of employees. Yours may or may not have as many or may have more. It's fine if you have more, obviously, but you can see all this information out here and then, print this out and you've got your certified payroll report. Now, if this 347 report changes and they, change the format of it, it hasn't been changed in a few years, but if it does ever change, we're going to update this to reflect the new version of that report. But this is how it works. So this is the report right there. All right, at this point, I can, of course, save this or print it and handle it that way. Let's look at the certified reporting that we can export out to either LCP Tracker or Points North. Now, we know there's other certified payroll reporting providers, and that's fine. If you do come across one or you're using one that we don't currently support, this is something that we added, I want to say in our last release, in the R1 release. So it's relatively new in the system here. So if you're using a provider that's not here and you would like us to support it, just reach out to us and let us know who it is that you're working with. And the formats are very similar between all of them. We did some research in this, and these are the two that we needed to support for a customer that asked for them. But we found other ones out there, and they're very similar formats. We just didn't do them because we didn't know anybody was using them. But let's just we'll do this one for like LCP Tracker here. I go ahead and choose my employer and the pay date. So very similar settings, except for I don't need to sign it. But the other settings are here, and I would just hit apply. And now it's going to generate out in the format for LCP Tracker. All right, well, let me show you what it generated in case you've never run this before. You can run this even if you're not using LCP Tracker or I think it was Points North. You can still run this report if you want to look at it in a spreadsheet format. So here you can see, here's that information that is in there for this Excel format. So this is what LCP Tracker needs. All right. I don't know what all the columns are off the top of my head, but you'll see here, what's out there. So if you're using LCP Tracker and you want to bring this stuff in there, we have this format for them. All right, and then Points North was the other one out there that if you would like to use them, we support theirs. I'll go ahead and run that one too, just so you can see what that looks like. What's going on? Why is my Zoom not switching back? Running is going to be the same thing. Just go into my options and choose Points North. I'm going to use the same date, and you'll get one for Points North. And I think you'll see when you look at this, it's going to look similar. The data is there. I believe the columns are just like different orders and stuff like that. So like I said, if you have a provider that you're using and you would like us to do that, rather than having us having you do something manually, we like to help you out. So let us know about whatever provider it is, because we want to make sure we're accommodating you. So here I'll show you the one for Points North. And here you can see different format, but the same data. So the employee data here, and as I go over, I'm going to see the numbers for the hours and so forth is all going to be over here. Don't need to worry about the actual numbers, but I think you can see all the different columns that are supported and going out there showing all this stuff. All right, so those are the two certified reporting exports that we have, and of course the certified reporting report in the system, the one that's out there. So you can kind of see our options here for certified reporting. I know there's been some Q&A questions. I think Patrick has answered them. Well, yeah, so I see the one question Lacey asked, what happens if it changes in the middle of the pay period? So let's say in my situation, I said July 1st. Let me go back to what that question was. I know Patrick said I was going to cover it, but I just want to reiterate that since we have a little bit of time. So let me go back to my certified reports here, or my certified rates. And this effective date right here is where that would come into play. So, let's say the first, well, I don't think the 1st of July is the beginning of a week here. Well, yeah, so let's say August 1st happened to be the beginning of your new rates. So what would happen is if I put in 8/1 as the date there, it would pay with these rates, these existing rates, all the way through the end of July, which is at Monday. And then Tuesday to the end of the week, it would use the new rates that were effective in August. So it's going to look at that there as far as the actual day those hours happen, not the pay dates, but the day the hours happen there. So the 31st of July would use, these rates here, 22, 50, 20, et cetera. And then on the 1st of August, let's just say this is now 23.50 or something like that. It would use this rate on August 1st going forward. All right, so that's how that would work. It would use that actual day. And of course, that means we have to have the days on the time entries. You can't just import in, let's say 40 hours. You have to tell us, okay, this is on Monday and Tuesday, et cetera. We need to know the actual days those happen. That's why our timesheets are useful. We also can import in dates through our payroll import. It requires the date to be on the entry. So if you are using a payroll import from another system, if it's one we integrate with, let's say like Procore or a time system, there's some other time systems we work with where they send us the actual days, which is what we need to be able to know that. If we don't have those days and you just send in 40 hours or some number of hours for the week, it's not possible for us to know, was that on Monday or was it on Tuesday through the end of the week? So we'd have to know that somehow. All right, see, so employee had two rates. One is part of a certified rate and another project position that's not part of the collective bargaining agreement. It would be best to have two positions. So if somebody has, let's say they're janitor and they're something else, and janitor is covered by that certified rate, that's where on the employee, you could have a additional position that did not have a certified rate. So I don't believe this person has one, but I could add a certified or a position here without a certified rate. So I would leave this blank and this position would not, let's say pitch maintenance. Okay, so whatever the rate is for this one, he does not have a certified rate and he would pay this rate, not the one from the tables. All right. All right, Lacey's asking a lot of questions. So can the rate be edited on the certified report? I believe the certified report has to be that way. So the built-in report that goes out, we followed the formatting of whatever the format says here. So this report, it has to be formatted that way. Now, if we're wrong, of course, we can make a correction on that. So if we need to show the full social security number, then let us know and we can make that change on the report. As you saw in the exports, it already is missing the or it has the full social security number in there. You might have seen it. All my people's social security numbers are the same, so it said 111 for everybody's social, but it did have the full social in there. So if this report, when it generates, needs to have the full social, let us know and we'll make sure we make that correction on there. And I'm saying social security number, the same thing would apply with SIN in Canada. It's a national identifier is actually how we call it in the back end. It doesn't matter which country they are. Each country kind of has their own scheme for that. So this one, as you see, the US says the last four of the social security number. So that's why we use that. All right, so I think that covered it. Thank you for your patience while I was running a little bit behind there. Did want to remind everybody about our upcoming calendar of events here. So should switch this back over to my PowerPoint. And so you can see we're going to leave payroll here behind for a little bit. We're going to go talk about custom fields and custom screens. So if you ever needed to track something that we currently can't handle in the system, possibly a custom field or custom screens might be useful for you to be able to track that information. So please feel free to join us in a couple weeks about that. And then later on in July, towards the end of July, which sounds crazy, but anyways, the end of July, we're going to go into recruiting. We're going to cover a couple of topics in recruiting. A few weeks ago, we covered the open positions. Now we're going to cover the candidates and how you can do some candidate maintenance and how you do that stuff on candidates. And then a couple of weeks after that, this is a topic specifically for the United States because E-Verify is a thing for the United States. So we're going to cover the I-9 form and E-Verify. So that is our upcoming schedule of events. Obviously join these if you can, or keep an eye out on emails as we publish out further into August and into, I don't even want to say further months into the future, but we'll keep going on these every couple of weeks. And we hope to see you then in a couple of weeks, if not in the future. So thank you very much for your